many people in the room, unless you're on the debt and credit side, are going to have their investors. Our investors would never sign up for 25 years. So we have mainly 5 to 7 year outlook for each of our investments. So in the Pakistan case, we developed it as a special purpose vehicle where all the equity investors went in to own a shared special purpose vehicle. The developer had a long track record, so it wasn't like we invested in a new company. But so we each held a piece of the SPV. We use the SPV funds to purchase the land, and as the land is developed and sold off, the equity owners get pieces of the dividends, and the SPV dissolves over time, and your exit's automatic in that case. The VTS, which is our Mozambique investment, that one, when we look towards the structure of it, we have the same idea. We have 3 co-investors, and we're now that we've developed the commercial and retail side to such an extent, we're looking to a strategic sale in that case to a large tool company business in South Africa that's looking to really get into looking at our distribution network of gas to sell tools to and then take over the sales of that.
For talking about some of the innovative ways you've addressed a number of the questions that we're looking at this afternoon in terms of structure, appropriate partners. As you were saying, the night that you had in each case I think is very important, and even touching on exits. I'd like to turn back to Mr. Tamtavia to share a bit more, please, with regard to the examples in Laos of PPP. One of those, please.
Would like to give you an example in Laos about the hydro project about the PPP to share risk in financing in the project. I work in the bank. I have a customer. He is the private company. They come to the bank to request the loan for the hydropower dam project in northern Laos. The company study the project and make the feasibility study and request to the ETL, like the government sector, to request the permission to construct the dam. This dam. The EDL and the company make the agreement to sell the electricity, and the government permit the company to make the project, and the government should make the facility about the legal system and the tax. This project is inform the concession, and the government don't take the tax about 3 to 5 years free tax of this concession. The project start, we give the loan, we share with the other banks in the form of the certificate loan, and the project start. But the company should work with the government authority, local government authority, to move the people to the border western area, and the project run very well until now. This is the concern government to the take risk. The bank take the risk with the company, and the company, the state-owned company EDL, like EDL, to take the risk about the price of the electricity. This is the principle in loss.
Thank you, Kamo. Let me turn again to Joseph. Keith mentioned a bit about exits. We're hoping to generate deal flow in this region. There aren't many yet. There's not much of a track record, but part of what will be essential to get started is for investors to know how they will exit these illiquid commitments.
You know, it's always so much easier when you have success stories. You can tell the next one. It's always the first one that's difficult. I mean, obviously everyone wants to exit as fast as they can, and there aren't any models, so it's new grounds for people coming up and saying we can make significant IRR on this and on a PPP project in this part of the world, right? So it's very nascent. But that is obviously the mindset to be able to pass this on to somebody who wants the cash flow. I think, frankly, it's quite premature for these big projects, for the $10 billion projects, even though we haven't been in there yet. We haven't even touched on those. But the groundwork's being laid out. I think what is feasible is for much smaller projects to demonstrate the growing capabilities of the countries and of these projects to actually deliver on what they have. So it's baby steps in that sense. I think that there are many success stories and there are more stories of toll roads all over the world. And I think that for them to have gotten to those stages, the UK, Australia, the US, it took a lot of time and a lot of missteps along the way before people were able to exit properly. And maybe not at the returns that they wanted. So I would think that the exits, frankly, are a great goal. But if one were to sell that story right off the bat, I think it would be quite difficult. It would be quite difficult. And I think Vietnam recognized that as well with the pilot efforts first. You've got a whole plethora of things you can do in PPP. You start with service concessions, loans, and all that stuff. You start with these steps, then you start going to the bigger projects, and go from there. But clearly, with the amount of money we're talking about, I mean, I don't know if anyone's looking at $2 billion projects and then saying we can make fantastic money off of this. I think it's, I don't know, I haven't seen anyone quite talk about it in that light. So just to bring it to perhaps sanity check on where things are at the moment.
Thank you. It's always very helpful to have a sanity check and certainly to keep some perspective. We have a fair amount of time left, I think, to take questions. Before I get all of you involved, let me see if, does anyone have another comment that you want to please?
One comment on the note on the exits, though. So I definitely agree that you need to have some of these demonstration type projects done before you can really get the industry moving or get a number of these larger PPP deals going. That being said, there's some strategy employed. At least I used to work at Citigroup in the emerging market division. We went into certain areas that were new. We also looked for what would get our investment committee, or in the case of Bamboo Finance now, what would get our investors most comfortable to start with. And those really did seem to start, at least with the land side. So I used the affordable housing program as that investment as a example. The backup exit we have in that case is we do own the land in the SPV. And unfortunately, we did run into a number of problems that if we really got bad, we would sell the land, and at the current valuations, at least what we've seen, the IRR on that project would still be favorable for our investors. And those type of collateralized projects have seemed to be the easiest for us to get our investors, at least our investment committee, comfortable with to start.
Thanks again, Keith. Been given the signal for 10 minutes, so let's open it up to your questions for the distinguished panel of colleagues I have here. We're running a mic to the gentleman in the back here. Do we have a caddy? No. Thanks, Jason. Full service panel here today.
Excuse me, I want to ask Mr. Kwang and the panelists about the PPP project in Vietnam. According to Mr. Kwang's presentation, you said that in the PPP contract in Vietnam, Vietnamese government will create the new legal framework
for the BBB project. I would like to ask you, in the case that the government participating in the PPP project in Vietnam, particularly in the public sector as an investor, does the government partner in the PPP project can give some specific law so that the PPP project can stand over the existing laws in Vietnam? That means in the case in some public services, according to the state bank, for example, they don't allow any people to set up the gold exchange or relating to the gold machine exchange. In the case, that means some the public sector, if the BBB project would like to benefit or to get some specific laws that can be conflict of existing laws, does the government back in this PPP project can intervene so that they can solve this problem?
Tôi nghĩ đây là một cái câu hỏi rất là phức tạp và tôi sẽ cố gắng để làm sao để trả lời được ông. Thứ nhất là về cái khung pháp lý đối với PPP thì như tôi cũng đã có giải thích là hiện nay là Việt Nam, chính phủ Việt Nam đã ban hành cái quyết định số 71 về thí điểm PPP, và cái nội dung của nó xác định ra một cái cách làm mới trong cái việc thu hút đầu tư của tư nhân vào lĩnh vực kết cấu hạ tầng và dịch vụ công. Thì đấy là về cái khung pháp lý, và cái điểm đặc biệt nhất của nó đó là cái hợp đồng được xem như là cái luật của dự án và sẽ do khu vực công và khu vực tư cùng đàm phán để xây dựng. Và cái thứ hai ấy là liên quan đến các cái lĩnh vực dịch vụ công thì theo quan điểm của chúng tôi thì trong tương lai thì chắc chắn là cái việc mà nếu như mà cái giai đoạn mà thí điểm này chúng tôi thực hiện thành công thì chắc chắn là cái mô hình PPP sẽ được mở rộng rất nhiều các cái lĩnh vực, kể cả các cái lĩnh vực dịch vụ công. Tuy nhiên là ở thời điểm này ấy, thì theo quyết định số 71 thì tôi xin thông báo với ông là chỉ có một lĩnh vực được đưa vào diện thí điểm, đó là khám chữa bệnh. Còn các lĩnh vực khác thì chưa được xem xét cách chính thức trong cái việc thí điểm PPP. Tất nhiên là trong quyết định 71 thì cũng để một cái cửa sổ hẹp để cho những cái trường hợp đặc biệt khác, nhưng mà đối với những trường hợp này thì được sự chấp thuận của Thủ tướng Chính phủ Việt Nam. Còn 8 cái lĩnh vực mà được cho phép thì chỉ có một lĩnh vực là dịch vụ công, đó là khám chữa bệnh. Thế còn trong tương lai thì như cũng có diễn giả cũng đã nói, tức là cũng rất là khó để có thể dự báo là trong tương lai 3 năm tới hay 5 năm tới hay 30 năm tới thì mọi việc nó sẽ diễn ra là như thế nào. Và tuy nhiên tôi tin tưởng rằng là nếu như chúng tôi thực hiện thành công cái mô hình PPP này trong giai đoạn thí điểm thì chắc chắn là các cái lĩnh vực dịch vụ công khác chúng tôi cũng sẽ nghiên cứu để đưa vào là PPP. Thế mà khi mà các lĩnh vực dịch vụ công được đưa vào làm PPP, tức là được đưa ra để kêu gọi cái khu vực đầu tư của tư nhân tham gia, thì đương nhiên sẽ không có những cái hạn chế, không có những cái trở ngại đối với khu vực đầu tư tư nhân khi tham gia vào những cái lĩnh vực đó. Thế còn những cái lĩnh vực dịch vụ công mà hiện nay đang cấm hay đang hạn chế đầu tư tư nhân tham gia như ý kiến của ông nêu thì tôi không rõ là những cái lĩnh vực nào, nhưng tôi tin rằng là nếu như cái chính sách PPP được áp dụng để thực hiện thành công trong giai đoạn thí điểm này thì chúng tôi sẽ mở rộng. Và tôi hy vọng mình đã trả lời được câu hỏi của ông.
Thank you for that. This legal question, of course, is very important, very complicated, as Mr. Kwong was saying, and certainly very closely tied to the predictability that capital markets would be looking for. I think it's also very helpful that Mr. Kwong talked about the many different sectors that are potentially appropriate for PPP. Let's move to another question for the panel, perhaps for another member of our panel. Is everyone still awake this afternoon? Yes, sir, in the back there.
Xin kính chào anh Quang. Tôi xin hỏi về một chữ B thôi, đó là lĩnh vực tư nhân. Thì tôi tên là Vinh, từ quỹ phát triển sạch của Dragon Capital, quỹ Mekong Brahmaputra Clean Development Fund. Thì chúng tôi dự định là sẽ lập một cái mô hình kinh doanh về bán năng lượng. Vì cái an toàn năng lượng của Việt Nam thì chúng tôi dự định làm một cái mô hình như vậy. Thì khi mà chúng tôi tìm hiểu các cái luật đầu tư nước ngoài tại Việt Nam á, thì cái mô hình này nó chưa có tiền lệ ở Việt Nam. Chính vì vậy chúng tôi không biết là phải xin phép đầu tư ở cái đơn vị nào, ở Sở Kế hoạch Đầu tư Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh hay là ở Bộ Kế hoạch Đầu tư.
Xin cảm ơn câu hỏi của anh Vinh. Anh có thể giải thích là cái mô hình bán năng lượng nó là cái gì không?
Mô hình tôi từ cái quỹ phát triển sạch thì chúng tôi sẽ sử dụng cái nguồn năng lượng tái tạo là năng lượng mặt trời, và chúng tôi sẽ dùng cái năng lượng mặt trời để chuyển đổi thành nhiệt, và chúng tôi bán cho các lĩnh vực, các công ty tư nhân chẳng hạn như là nhà hàng, khách sạn, các công ty chế biến thủy hải sản chẳng hạn. Thì khi mà bán cái năng lượng này thì chúng tôi sẽ tiết kiệm được cái năng lượng mà họ đang sử dụng từ cái nguồn điện lưới quốc gia, hoặc là họ tiết kiệm được cái nguồn năng lượng từ những cái nguồn năng lượng như là dầu hỏa, ga chẳng hạn. Và cái lĩnh vực này nó chưa có Việt Nam, nhưng nó tồn tại rất là nhiều ở những cái nước như là gần giống như chúng ta, chẳng hạn như là Brazil hay là Trung Quốc.
Cái lĩnh vực bán năng lượng như là anh Vinh có nêu thì tôi thấy rằng là đúng là đây là một lĩnh vực mới. Nếu mà trong cái phân ngành kinh tế của Việt Nam theo quyết định số 10 của Thủ tướng Chính phủ thì tôi nghĩ rằng là cũng hình như là cũng chưa có cái, nếu mà tôi nhớ không nhầm thì như cũng chưa có cái lĩnh vực này. Thế cho nên là tôi cũng xin nói rằng là tôi cũng chưa đủ thẩm quyền có thể trả lời anh ngay được ở đây là nó thuộc về thẩm quyền của Bộ Kế hoạch Đầu tư hay là thành phố. Thì tôi sẽ kiểm tra lại và sẽ có cái trả lời sau.
Do you have a comment there? Let me allow.
I just have a comment. Maybe it's not related to Vietnam specifically the licensing, but one of our other investments, not a board member on, but indirectly involved in, is a renewable energy investment in India, and they do biogasification plants, and through the government involvement there. So India always says in all of their official statements they are trying to get the entire population on the grid. And they offer subsidies through a division called the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, MNRE. So that kind of catalyzes the investment at least. So we weren't looking for full support, but subsidies to certain plants, biogas plants being built. That's just a little side info.
Thank you. Bạn Thiên Anh, chúng tôi nói không có ăn trưa miễn phí. Hôm nay chắc chắn cho ăn quán không phải là rất nhiều để ăn trưa. Maybe we have one last question for one of the other members of the panel. Mr. Kwong has been on 2 of our panels today and working very hard to earn his lunch. So I think we have time for just one more question. Yes, sir. Let's hear from you, please.
So, Brian, thanks very much. Very interesting panel. As an American posted over here, maybe our 2 American colleagues up here could comment on the differences, comparison between the U.S. government SBIC programs, the SBA, which are sort of similar. They facilitate investments at the sort of SME level, and how does that, differ from the PPP programs that we're talking about here?
Maybe I'll try to start and let me quickly hand it off to Jonathan or Keith. What we're trying to do is share some of our experience and some of our best practices, but in fact there hasn't been a great huge number of these kinds of PPP kinds of projects in the United States. We do have those examples that you were talking about, and we tend to imagine the very large power projects, but I think what Joseph was saying about starting on small scale and what Jonathan was saying about looking at very specific niches where it's not just a simple question of the cost of capital that the government is looking for and the profitability that the capital markets are looking for, but the technology expertise and perhaps some of those other factors that Keith was talking about, and looking at structuring it that way. I think one of the key differences is certainly is the legal system. And I think that's very important in the U.S., important factor in success. And as Mr. Kwong was saying, that's I think a priority of the government is to get that piece right. And that's certainly something through the STAR program and other things that we've tried to accompany the Vietnamese on. Let me turn over to either Jonathan or Keith if you could add a word.
I think in Vietnam, one of the important issues in infrastructure development
is something I was alluding to earlier, which is the fragmentation of implementation on the government side, which I think remains a very serious issue. Commitments at various levels of government don't necessarily coincide. So investors will come with and imagine that they're participating in a specific program at the central level, but then they'll get to the provincial level or even below the provincial level and find a different set of institutions, a different structure of incentives, and not necessarily a clear hierarchy as to which of these programs or which of these government agencies takes priority. And the assumption that the center will always trump the province, I think, is a very bad assumption in Vietnam. So what we find, I think, in particular is, particularly in long life capital assets and any kind of infrastructure that really requires a lot of consistency and a lot of different kinds of institutions to line up, is that in itself is a particular problem in Vietnam. I think in the rest of the region as well. I mean, maybe you can help me with that. But I think in Vietnam, my understanding is that in any kind of these developments of these kinds, that fragmentation remains a serious problem. For example, we look at the ports down in Cai Mep on the coast. There are a number of investors building ports in Cai Mep, still waiting for that road from Dong Nai to Cai Mep. It's not there yet. It's been promised for a long time. It's really the key piece of infrastructure for making those ports commercially viable. But there are a lot of different government institutions involved in delivering that road, and they haven't been able to resolve their differences and to realize that particular project, with very serious implications for investors, both foreign and domestic, who are building ports in Cai Mep. So I think those kind of problems are very specific to Vietnam, but they're things that investors need to watch very carefully.
So I'll give a little bit of the examples from India, Mozambique, and Pakistan. I'm not as familiar too with SBA. Most of my work has been in emerging markets and based out of Switzerland. But from my understanding with SBA, a lot of it is tax incentives and some subsidy or loan rates. Going back to, and it seems more generalized, I don't know if they do specific, I don't know if my time is up there, but I don't know if they do specific asset categories, but I think the whole idea of very specific investment programs has been the theme with ours. So if you look at the healthcare one in Mozambique, it was a very specific structured problem that they had, and we offered a very specific solution to it that we thought was also commercially viable. The Pakistan one was, you could say there's somewhat of subsidy in the rate at which we bought the land that was zoned for low income. And then the one in India would probably be the closest, where it was a direct subsidy for every plant that was built. They got a payment, although the risk goes back to that payment was delayed. And much like filing for a subsidy, you have to go through the paperwork and plan on such a delay.
Thank you. I want to help our organizers by keeping us on time. So if you please join me in thanking our panelists, and thank you for your attention.
We're actually going to have 3 businesses today come up and pitch to some investors. All of the businesses are given 3 minutes to explain why they should get this investment committee's money. At the end during those 3 minutes, none of the investors can speak. At the end of the businessman's pitch, you'll then receive, at the conclusion of all 3 pitches, then the investment committee will have an open discussion and decide why they want to pick one of the winners. And we have a small gift for the person who wins. So I think that our first contestant today is actually going to be Bobby Bate. Trump, you want to come on up here? Let's give him a hand when he comes up, guys. I'm going to have my very fancy iPhone clock set here so we can get this done. And I will give you a countdown to from 3, okay? Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon. My name is Trung Dung, and I'm the founder of an electronic payment company called MobiPay. And I was taught that before any speech, I should attempt to make a joke. But given the time constraint of 3 minutes, I'm not sure how long the joke I can make, maybe 2.5 minutes. And then I can have 30 seconds for the elevator pitch, which is what the standard length is of what the elevator pitch. But anyway, we founded the company about 4 years ago by a group of technology entrepreneurs coming from the US. We launched the service at the beginning of 2010 and has been on a very rapid growth of about 30% a month. Today we're processing about $1 million a day, and that will go to about $5 million a day in about 4 to 6 months. And our objective is to get to about $15 million a day in 2013. So before I go further and say why another big payment company, because you already have the great Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal, all that good names, right? I just want to bring out that we designed the system to address 2 key characteristics of the Vietnam economy. The first one is that is the credit availability to consumer and small business. In Vietnam, credit is not available to consumer and small businesses. Right? Number 2, the banking infrastructure is still fairly immature. So basically, the system is designed to overcome these two characteristics. If you take the comparison with for example, Visa, probably 95% of Visa processing volume are based on 2 products. One is the credit card, and 2 is the debit card. So if you bring Visa with the traditional transaction being done through credit card and debit card, you throw to Vietnam, it's not going to work because those 2 things are not available in Vietnam, right? So that's kind of the premise of why we designed the system to facilitate payment when in an economy that have those 2 characteristics. So exactly what do? We provide a complete infrastructure from payment to reconciliation to settlement, and provide all the infrastructure for the customer to make the payment. And on top of this infrastructure, we build a number of vertical market applications. And the first and major vertical industry application is what we call the nationwide distribution system for digital products. And let me define what digital products are. We basically classify digital product into 3 categories. One is prepaid, 1 and 2 is cash collection, and 3rd is the kind of booking ticket reservation engine. And then we build a powerful distribution channel. The objective is to get to about 50,000 points of retailers that will distribute this product. And today we have about 4,000 of these things, and we will grow to about 50,000 within the next few years.
Time. All right, everyone, let's give him a hand.
In theory, the joke you shouldn't camera, so I should have it. Thank you very much.
Sure, if you want to stick around, we can maybe give you some feedback. I'll actually give him a seat. Go ahead. Do you want to give some feedback from the investors real quick? First up, let's go with Doug Clayton from Lever Capital.
Okay, I think you have a very complicated business to explain in 3 minutes. So it's a challenge for you. What I took away is that you've had very impressive growth so far and very ambitious goals going forward, which might take longer for us to understand whether they're realistic or not. You didn't have enough time, I guess, to explain who you are or your management team and what exactly you're looking for in terms of raising money.
Hugh Nguyen from PVFC. Or do you want to go first? Either way. Okay, you.
I was impressed with his performance and his ambition to solve the 2 could not issue the credibility and payment system because though area is not developed, well developed yet, so I think he has a lot of potential and playing field to play in the future. But he has not mentioned exactly what he do, explain really what he do yet, and what he want from us in the future. So it's quite hard for us to just how is his proposal is.
Thank you. Vâng.
Yeah. Given the constraint of 3 minutes, so if I were Dũng, I would say about the unique selling point of the business to the investor and what the expectation, from the investor point of view, and you think about that and you pitch down in 3 minutes.
I think out of fairness, I'd like to give an additional minute to maybe answer some of the questions that have come because I know Truman, I don't want him to be mad at me, so there you are.
Thank you very much, all. Very wonderful comment. I think that's exactly right. I think all these comments are very welcome and I appreciate it.
Okay. There we go. Okay, can we have the second contestant up, Yen Viet. Please come to the stage. This is going to be done in Vietnamese, so Doug, you want to put your headphones on? Xin phép được nói bằng tiếng Việt.
Tôi là Huy, giám đốc và kinh doanh của công ty Tiếng Việt. Hôm nay tôi đến đây xin phép được chia sẻ cơ hội của chúng tôi đối với ngành thủy sản tại Việt Nam, đối với các nhà đầu tư có mặt trong cái khán phòng ngày hôm nay. Có lẽ quý vị đã biết từ ngày xưa yến xào là một cái món ăn bổ dưỡng, có thể là xếp vào những cái món ăn cao lương mỹ vị được gọi là bát canh của con người. Khoa học đã chứng minh yến xào có những cái tác dụng rất tốt cho những bệnh nhân đang trong cái giai đoạn bệnh và đặc biệt là yến xào ngăn chặn cái sự lão hóa cho các phụ nữ, ngăn ngừa giúp cho họ trẻ lại. Rồi yến xào cũng có những cái tác dụng là bồi bổ sức khỏe cho con người, như là cái ví dụ như là chống cái biến ăn hay là suy nhược cơ thể. Thì tại sao tôi muốn nói những công dụng như vậy? Bởi vì